What is up, guys? Rick Kackis here. Thank you so much for stopping by, and today we're going to be talking about the Iron Banner, going over the good, the bad, the absolute memes, everything about this new activity. Well, it's actually not a new activity at all. Iron Banner has been around since Destiny was a thing, but this is the very first Iron Banner of the brand new season of the Undying. This is the first Iron Banner after a big content drop with Shadowkeep. And normally, whenever we get those big paid expansions, we can expect activities like the Iron Banner to be updated, to change. Well, has anything changed this time? And is it for the good or for the bad? Now, I actually put out a poll on my Twitter wondering what people felt about this Iron Banner. Because for me, there's definitely positives, but there was a lot of negatives as well. And I very clearly remember, like, every time I would try to get a group together for Iron Banner, it would be the response, I guess. Like, people were not thrilled to be hopping into Iron Banner. That being said, it wasn't like there was no fun to be had at all when you were in the Iron Banner. It's not like it wasn't rewarding. We're going to talk about that in a sec, but I was surprised to see that a lot of people did love Iron Banner. Mostly, though, it was neutral, and that's really the sense I'm getting from the majority of the community. People had the things they liked and the things they didn't like. It wasn't just overwhelmingly positive or negative. So, let's take a second to talk about the positive. What went well this Iron Banner? Well, number one, it's actually really rewarding. Iron Banner is finally worth doing because it really wasn't for a long time. If you had the weapons, you're good to go, right? You really weren't clamoring to go do Iron Banner, but this time you have two big reasons to do it. Number one, Lord Saladin is handing out enhanced mods like they're candy. They are going out of style. This guy's yeeting those enhanced mods all over the place, and it is an unbelievably lucrative source of those rare mods. Like, previously, I was farming 980 Nightfalls, and let me tell you, the rate on return for 980 Nightfalls and 950 Nightfalls is nowhere near as much as Lord Saladin is giving. So that is actually going to make it so that people have a legitimate reason to go do Iron Banner, get those tokens, and be turning them in and getting those very, very good rewards. Okay, so that's good thing number one. Good thing number two, the Iron Banner quest. Now, in previous Iron Banners, the quest was much more extensive and in a lot of places much more annoying. I remember there was one quest step one time that had sword kills as a requirement. Well, that just meant everyone was camping heavy, and it was a pretty annoying experience. This time, the requirements still had you switch off of different weapons. Some people were still kind of annoyed they had to finally put away that crutch last word. but the thing was, I actually don't mind that. I don't mind Bungie saying, hey, use something a little bit different. The weapon types being featured, pulse rifles, fusion rifles, and SMGs. And then it was grenade launchers, but it was kind of SMGs again. That last step was bugged. Those gun types are really not that bad. Pulse rifles, like the fast-firing pulse rifles especially, are phenomenal. There's a lot of good pulse rifles. I mean, fusion rifles, the air intel, oh my gosh. SMGs, Recluse, I mean, come on. And then grenade launchers, thank goodness that was bugged. I got enough mountaintop spam with it not being bugged, but SMGs, again, so it's not like Bungie was making us use sidearms. I honestly would have almost preferred that to really make people mix things up, but I digress. One of the other things about this quest wasn't just making you use some different guns, but it was also getting captures, which actually encouraged people to play the objective. I am totally for a quest with the requirement of getting captures. And then it was just, getting some super finishes and some opponents defeated, matches completed, pretty general stuff. The overall consensus for this quest was that it got you your entire set of Iron Banner armor, and it really wasn't too bad. Bungie wasn't asking anything ridiculous, and it was very achievable for a lot of players, which is good in its own right that you can get this quest done, and then if you want to continue grinding Iron Banner your own way, you have a lot of extra time to do that. You're not spending multiple days doing one quest, and then when you're finally done, you're like completely burnt out on the Iron Banner. With this one, it was pretty reasonable to do the quest and then just grind normally. Now, speaking of the armor, this is another thing in the good category. Firstly, the fact that you can get one complete set for the collectors and people who like actually having their guardians not look like utter garbage. Those people are gonna love it. And the armor seemed to drop with overall pretty good stat rolls. I saw a lot of people get either high 50s or even 60s and above in terms of total stats, and that's great too. Also, I'm going to put this in the positives, but I still like the Iron Banner game mode. I like its little spin on control. The whole thing of triple capping locks down the zones, and then it's a power play and you've got to go and get as many kills as possible. But then if you get too aggressive and push too much in the spawn, you're going to realize that the power play ends and the other team can capture 2 zones when you're like pushing too deep. Like I like the plays and the comebacks that can arise from that whole mechanic. I actually do like that. But let's move on from the positives, and before we get to the negatives, let's talk about the one big poso negative, the thing that people are debating whether it's a good thing, whether it's a bad thing, and that is the light level requirements. A lot of people hated these light level requirements, hated the fact that you're at a disadvantage if you're of a lower light level. A lot of other people loved it and feel like that is the entire purpose of the Iron Banner. So just to talk about this for a sec, it was very interesting. If you were a super low light level, if you were 900 going in there, you were at a colossal disadvantage. Like, you really had a hard time competing, and basically you just brought your team down, frankly. And that is definitely somewhat of a annoying experience, especially when this is the first Iron Banner, this is the first kind of special PvP event for the hundreds of thousands of Destiny 2 New Light free-to-play players that are joining us with Shadowkeep. And so all those guys are thrown into the meat grinder of Iron Banner, and I can't imagine they had a super positive experience unless you have the free-to-play players that just went ham along with everyone else and got to some reasonable power levels. They could have probably competed, but for the most part, that likely wasn't the case. But you also have this issue exasperated by the fact that the way you level up in terms of pinnacles once you've reached the gear score of 950 is extremely annoying, almost broken, and exceedingly RNG dependent. I made a whole video on it. But basically, the people who got lucky and squeezed a few more pinnacle light levels over everyone else are at huge advantages now. And also, the people who ignored the pinnacle grind, said, screw that, I'm just going to experience grind, they're at a colossal advantage. The highest light level people out there, their base gear score, like if they're doing pinnacles, isn't even that high. It's just their artifact score because they're just farming tons of experience. And so that leads to the pretty big problem of if you're in the Iron Banner trying to do your pinnacles, which is what Bungie wants you to do to level up your gear score past 950, you're at a disadvantage to the people who have completely ignored that and just went the experience grinding route. And that doesn't make a lot of sense, does it? But with all of that being said, and there being clear problems with allowing power level in PvP, that's what Iron Banner was founded upon. The entire idea of Iron Banner is having PvP where light levels are finally enabled, because in every other mode they're disabled. So this is supposed to be the mode that rewards the players who put the time in, who are grinding, who reach those super high power levels, and finally give some of the PvE grinders an edge in PvP. But is that an archaic, outdated idea? Like, that's the debate right now, and I don't think there's a clear answer. But let's continue on from there and get into the negatives. These are the annoying things, the bad things about Iron Banner. And number one, something a lot of people pointed out, even though this Iron Banner was extremely rewarding in terms of the armor and the mods, there was no new weapons. not a single new weapon to grind for within this Iron Banner. A lot of people were very annoyed by that, especially because Shadowkeep, in terms of size and price, has often been compared to the Rise of Iron, and the Rise of Iron in Destiny 1 completely refreshed all of the Iron Banner weapons and had quite a lot of good ones, like the Clever Dragon, which took over the meta for a bit. So we're used to fall expansions completely overhauling the Iron Banner weapons and giving us brand new ones, and we had none of that this season. So that was definitely a disappointment. Now, in fairness to Bungie, we've got a lot of new weapons to use and acquire with Shadowkeep. We've got moon weapons, we've got raid weapons, we've got Vex offensive weapons, but adding in, for example, an Iron Banner ritual weapon, something to grind for in the weapons department, wouldn't have been a terrible idea in my opinion. Now the next big negative is the meta. I was running into Mountaintop plus Recluse Sweatlords the entire time I was playing Iron Banner. The entire time. Here's the problem. I was running into those people the last season with Season of Opulence, and the season before that. And if you're on console and you don't have those guys, you probably have the one-eyed mask pulse rifle spammers and all that stuff. Look, if you're using the meta, you're trying to win an Iron Banner. I mean, that's the point of the game mode, is to win. I'm not talking about that. What I'm talking about is that the same strategies that have been barraging us for months are still the most used strategies. Yes, there was a little bit of a meta shift, and you're gonna see more scout rifles this time. I definitely saw more Jade Rabbits and Mida multi-tools, but a lot of that is more attributable to people trying to get their Randys than necessarily those being the absolute top, because if you're trying to use those, you know you get shredded by the claws of the wolf just as easily, even if you're at scout rifle range. But it's very disappointing in my opinion that we've gone months and months and months with the same weapons at the top of the meta, and it's getting a little bit frustrating and it's getting a little bit tiresome. This is combined with the fact that Bungie refuses to recognize that there is a big difference between console and PC. And if they're gonna nerf Mountaintop for PC reasons, which is definitely something you could argue they should, you know, it's not really that abused on console and it's gonna be impacted there. So they need to get their act together in terms of more substantial, more consistent, more frequent, and differentiating meta changes for the different platforms. And this problem is yet again especially exasperated by the new light players. They're coming into the game for the first time. What are they supposed to do against a Mountaintop Recluse spammer? Like, that stuff is just so unbelievably more powerful than whatever the new light players have. It is going to be frustrating to go up against. And I want to state for the people rushing down to the comments to tell me how hard they worked for the Recluse and it should stay good, I'm not saying that Bungie should just nerf everything that's good, but for goodness sakes, we need some new stuff coming to the top of the meta every once in a while. It's getting pretty stale. However, this entire negative is pumped up by the next negative, and that is way too much skill-based matchmaking. Now, this is a can of worms I have just opened. There is always a raging debate over skill-based matchmaking. Generally, the more hardcore players don't like it, and some of the newer players feel like it's absolutely necessary for them to have a fair match. And in reality, it's a mix of both. I think that you can't have no skill-based matchmaking. You need to protect the new light players and make sure they're not matching against people in orgs, but at the same time, too much skill-based matchmaking makes your connections suffer, it makes every single match feel like a slog fest, and you know what? Sometimes you just like to slay out in PvP and have a match where you do mercy the other team, and that's what PvP is. You match against people who are better than you, and you match against people who are worse than you. You can't shelter the bad players so extremely that you make the vast majority of medium-skilled to high-skilled players suffer. And I felt like in Iron Banner, it was turned up a little too much. And I could tell this because I was matching the same people again and again and again. Seriously, I'm on PC, so the Steam names are the most ridiculous things you'll ever see in your entire life. And I had people in my lobbies called, like, double cheeseburger with bacon and extra sauce or whatever. I remember that guy because I'm like, oh my goodness, what a name, right? It sticks with you. I matched that same guy 3 different times, and it was me completely backing out of lobbies and going back in. Guys, that's insane. The Steam player population is now the highest player population. That's been revealed because of New Light. And I remember seeing a tweet about the Destiny player population on a Wednesday, just a random Wednesday with Iron Banner on, and it said that over 800,000 people were in Iron Banner on that random Wednesday. 800,000 people. Now, that is across all platforms, and it's the daily total, not concurrent, but Steam usually averages over 200,000 people on Destiny 2 at the same time. Let's say of that population, 70,000 people are playing the Iron Banner, which would actually be pretty reasonable for how these numbers break down. So 70,000 people on the Iron Banner. How am I matching the same dude 3 times in a row? Like, it seriously seemed like I had the same 20 or so people. It wasn't just one guy's name I recognized. I would constantly recognize names. The game clearly had a handful of people it says are on my same skill level and just kept throwing me in with those guys again and again and again. And by the way, this is not just anecdotal. Bungie has come out and said that, yeah, skill-based matchmaking is definitely enabled in Iron Banner. And that's just not fun. You're going to see those same people obviously using the same weapons they were using the last match. So the problem of running into the same people abusing the best of the meta, like you're just running into them again and again and again, and it just wears you down so much faster. The guy, with 0 captures who's just trying to get recluse kills, well, guess what? He's in your same match again and again and again, and it just gets annoying. Matching different people of varying skill levels is going to mean that you're going to match some different things. You're going to match people using different things, and it keeps it feeling fresh. But if skill-based matchmaking is turned on times a million, which I really do feel it was too high for this Iron Banner, you are just going to have a very similar experience every single match, and that just gets annoying. In any event, guys, those are my thoughts on the Iron Banner. What I thought was good, was neutral, was bad. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comment section if you had a ton of fun, if you absolutely hated it, the things that you would like to see changed. And I think in terms of things I would like to see changed, dial back that skill-based matchmaking just a little bit, Bungie. It doesn't need to be this intense. And there's already going to be a patch hitting the game on October 29th that's going to nerf Bottom Tree Striker and Dawnblade. Okay, those were heavily used in Iron Banner. You're already going to see a tiny bit of a meta shift. Why not throw in a couple of more things that needs to be nerfed or some things that need to be buffed? Let's have some meta shifts every once in a while because I'm sick of seeing the exact same things. Also, there's still some old Year 1 Iron Banner weapons like the Time War Spire Pulse Rifle that haven't been reintroduced in a randomly rolled fashion. Put those into the loot pool and actually give us some weapons to grind for too. Guys, that's it for the video. I hope you enjoyed, found this informative. If you did, please remember to help me out by simply rating and especially sharing this video. If you guys want to see more Destiny 2 content similar to this, don't be afraid to slap that subscribe button. If you guys want to get in touch with me and keep up to date with the latest channel activity, the best way is to follow me on Twitter at @RickKackis. That's linked in the description down below. Again, hope you enjoyed the video, and as always, have a good day.